Thank you. Tonight's program is titled Love's Where You Live, the Peoria Transplant Experience. And I've been humbled by the people in front of me on this panel. And I think Peoria is extremely lucky to have 6 of these transplants live and work in Peoria. So our town is very lucky to have these 6 people live here, work here, and be a part of our community. So I want to thank them, first of all, for being on the panel, but second of all, their backgrounds are amazing, and I can't wait to introduce each of them to you. So I'm Paul Resnick. I'm retired from Illinois Central College. I've been part of Peoria Reads since 2002, and Roberta Kaczewski and I were just reminiscing on a lesson before dying in 2002, and Ernest Gaines coming to the Peoria area and having that offer come. So we were very excited. And since 2002 now, 20 years, I've been part of Peoria Reads. And Roberta has too, and Roberta will be retiring in May. So I think we should give Roberta a hand for being the leader of Peoria Reads for these 20 years in Peoria area. So we've been very lucky to have Roberta do that for us. I'd also like to thank Alice Jackson, who's leader of our committee for Peoria Reads, Alice, who was just up here, and then Jennifer Davis. Jennifer was a big help with getting things started for tonight's program. So the book is a book right here, is Where You Belong by Melody Warnick. She'll actually be here a week from today on Zoom, so you can actually meet the author, which is exciting. And there's a lot of other events that are part of this book. So hopefully you'll see a brochure or see something online for all the different events that this has. Now I'd like to introduce the panelists, and we have a series of questions to ask them, and at the end, there will be time for questions and answers. So without further ado, let me introduce each of the panelists to you. I'm going to start with John, the representative guy up here. John Schneider, did I say that right? Schneider is originally from the North Shore suburb of Lake Forest, but his family's history runs deep in Peoria. Distant relatives were recognized for everything from creating now famous hunting decoys. If you've been to our riverfront museum, you've seen the hunting decoys, to owning one of the last jewelry stores to operate downtown. 2.5 years ago, John arrived to the area to pursue his passion for broadcast media. He now works as an anchor and a reporter for 25 News and the Heart of Illinois ABC. Jyoti Mantina was born and raised in India and moved to Peoria in August of 2017 with her husband. Jyoti has a bachelor's degree in information technology and loves all things fashion, cooking, collecting coins, making terracotta clay jewelry, plants, and reading. Whew. Jyoti teaches yoga at Soul Site Healing Arts and recently started cooking Indian meals and selling them at Sous Chef, which is right next to Soul Site. So there's Jyoti. Angie Ostachevsky, that was a hard part for me. Angie is originally from Kentucky. Since 2016, Angie has worked for Ameren, Illinois in their communications, charitable giving, and energy efficiency groups. Most recently, she received the AESB 2020 Emerging Professional of the Year Award and was selected for the Peoria Magazine 2021 40 Under 40. In her spare time, she runs Angie's listings on TikTok and has attracted over 80 people to the Peoria area since September 2020.
It's 122.
Oh, no. Lynette Hernandez. Lynette grew up in the United Arab Emirates in Hong Kong and developed a passion for games. She moved to the U.S. in 2006 to pursue a master's in game programming and had a 12-year career in creating casino slot machine games. That was not bad, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
The West Coast.
West Coast. She now teaches game programming at Bradley University. She has lived on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and this is her first time living in the Midwest. So, Lynette. Chang-An Lee is a Dallas, Texas native. She has a background in marketing and entrepreneurship and currently works at Harness, a nonprofit that advances cultural change through entertainment, art, and activism. Chom On has started several of her own small businesses, as well as editing videos for her YouTube channel, Crybaby Movie Club. Interesting. Currently, she just found the perfect home in the Peoria area, and she'll be closing on it tomorrow. And then lastly, but never least, is Jan Rohr. Was born in Peoria, and after living in various parts of Illinois for undergraduate and graduate school, decided to move back to Peoria to start an art foundry called Black Dog Metal Arts with her spouse, Danny. Jan is also the owner of Radish Kitchen, a vegan convenience store located in West Peoria. So let's give all 6 of them a hand. So this is going to be informal and organic, but here are the questions, and we'll just go, we'll write down the line, and you guys can jump in. What were your first impressions of Peoria and the Peoria area? Anybody want to start this one?
So for me personally, when I first moved to Peoria, the people really stood out to me. The people here are extremely nice. They're patient, they're friendly, they're very open, they're very understanding. My one example I have is when I first moved here July 1st last year, and my movers glitched, for lack of a better word, and I did not get my belongings until September 1st, and so I needed to go and buy outfits for class was starting in August. And so I went to JCPenney, I picked up some clothes, and the customer service lady who was checking me out, you know, I was just kind of paying. She asked me, oh, you have a party coming up? I said, no, you know, I have no clothes right now to actually start my new job with. And she said, oh, you're new here. And she proceeded to give me advice of things to do, places to visit, restaurants. And I appreciated that, but I also felt bad for everybody else in the line. And I turned around and I said, I'm so sorry, I'm taking your time, this is gonna take longer. And they said, don't worry, you're new, let's tell you more. And they added to my conversation. And I moved here from Seattle, that would never happen in Seattle. And so that is one example of many like that just drew me to the warmth of the people. And I instantly fell in love with Peoria.
Okay, I'm next to you, so is this on? I think it is, okay. So I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and so when I first moved to Peoria, I was like, oh, it's like Louisville, Virginia. It's on a river, got a river front of downtown. Of course, a little bit smaller, doesn't take 30 minutes to drive everywhere, which I loved. But one thing I really liked, I moved here in my late 20s, and a lot of times when we move to a college town, a lot of the actual activities to do out are like just drinking, clubbing. I go to bed at like 8:30, so that wasn't really my thing. But you know, moving here, there's such a vibrant like art scene. There's so many different kinds of you know, like cultural grocery stores and local businesses. So I felt like for my prime time of energy, which is like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., there was a lot for me to do, like art galleries and different things out in the community, and it made it a lot easier to connect with other people because there are so many kind of activity and connection-based type things. The fact that we have multiple art galleries, multiple museums, it was just really easy to plug in and explore a little bit.
I'll just go next. I grew up here. I don't think. Can you hear me? Do I get okay? I used to teach too, so I project. But I grew up here, and when I was younger, growing up, I was a little more cynical about it. I thought Peoria was just a small town, didn't have much to offer, and I couldn't wait to move to a bigger city. And then when I went away for school, I couldn't wait to get back to Peoria. I was just seeing everybody building their own opportunities, and it's really hard to take that step and do that anywhere, but you can do that in Peoria because everybody is so excited about what everyone else is doing, and people just can't wait to ask, like, how can I help? What can I do to show up for you? How can I be involved in what it is that you're doing, even if it's not, you know, their thing per se, but it's just, I've never lived or heard of anywhere else that's so kind and supportive and filled with just people that really care about other people in this way.
I agree with it. So my first impression actually was through Angie, through her TikTok, Angie's listings. And the way that she talked about the city was just so, like, she was just so excited about it. And I was just drawn to that attraction to like her town and caring about making it a better place. And so I told her, I'm interested in maybe moving here. I was looking to buy a house, and it's like impossible in Dallas now, if you haven't heard. So she recommended me to her friend who was a realtor, Mike. And then I talked to Mike, and he was also so friendly. And he told me all of these things he's a part of. Like, he coaches for wheelchair basketball on Thursdays, and he does all these things. And I was like, there's actually so much to do in this town. Like, and coming from Dallas, where there is a lot of activity, but it's kind of overwhelming, and you can get lost and not really feel like you're a part of the community because there's just so much going on. And it's just like busy. And so that was so inviting and really helped me like with my journey of finding a house here. And then fast forward, I'm in the Peoria Transplant Facebook group, and then Paul posted about the panel, and I'm like, okay, I might as well, like, this is great to meet people. And then when we meet on Zoom, he's like, oh, like, you're not even living here yet. Well, if you ever visit, how about I offer you a place to stay? And I was like, okay, I guess, like, I might need that, while I'm looking for a house. And sure enough, the last couple of days I've been staying with Paul in his guest room, and I brought my friend and his wife Cheryl, and they've just been so welcoming and kind and telling me about the city, and it's just been such a warm experience. And I'm so excited to like be a part of the community that I feel like I can make an impact on.
So first, I want to thank Paul and the library for having us. This is a great experience, and I'm honored to be part of it. I know everyone else here is as well. So growing up in a family where my father was originally a Peoria native, and where a lot of my father's side of the family was based in Peoria, the city kind of had a mythical status for me. I hear, all these stories about him growing up, the cheese fries at Who's Driving, and the memories he had, hanging out with all his high school buddies at PHS. And so in my mind, I had this image of the city of just these very welcoming people, this fun, lovable town. And that's exactly what I found when I moved here 2.5 years ago. Now, I'd only been here a few times prior due to the fact that my dad's parents lived down here, but there's really not much else that brought us. And then when I came down here and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity and the job that I do, I truly fell in love with it. It was an experience that I quickly adapted to, number one, because of the people. The people here, and I think this is a sentiment that's already been echoed many times and will be echoed several times throughout the evening. It's the fact that they're so willing to share their experience as Peorians and people from Central Illinois. They want to help make it your experience too. And coming here as someone who had never lived independently in an environment that he wasn't as familiar with before, I felt like it was the connections that people made with each other, whether you were a native or a transplant. It just made it easy. And it was that welcoming environment that I truly just, it can't be topped. I've never encountered a place where so much love for a town has been so present and so top of mind. And even though I've lived here 2.5 years, I'm still constantly finding new places to eat, new things to experience. And I try to encourage so many of my friends, I went to school in Michigan, so many of my friends from, upstate Illinois and Michigan and elsewhere across the Midwest to come and visit. Because people think about downstate Illinois, it's like, well, it's all corn. Now, certainly there's a lot of corn, not deny that fact, but there's so much more to it. And as soon as my friends come down here, as soon as they come and experience it firsthand, they know exactly what I need. And they say, you want to prove to me that there's so much to offer here. And that's something that I know everybody here can attest to. It's truly the experience firsthand. It's being able to connect with those people and share the Peoria experience, share the Central Illinois experience. it's effortless, and it's something I feel very, very lucky to be a part of, and very, very grateful to be a part of at the same time.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. So my first impression was I thought it was so cold. Because living in India for 23 years and moving to US for the first time and to the Midwest, I was really struggling. But and I also thought it was like very small town and I don't know anybody here. But once I started going out, like exploring the city, and once I started teaching at Soulside, I really felt like people were very welcoming and very friendly, and they're so warm and nice.
Okay, thank you. Next question. And some of you already touched on a little bit of this, but maybe not the other part. In your mind, what are the best aspects of Peoria and the worst? What are some of the shadows? You got a lot of sun. What are some of the shadows?
We just look down.
However you want to do it.
I think again I would say the weather. The only worst part, other than that, it's really nice community.
Everyone's been warning me about the winters here and I'm getting a little scared.
I think one of the things that I am not a fan of Peoria are the roads. I think that's the only thing, and I'm like, why are the roads so bad? And, you know, I think I've heard somebody say, oh, because it snows. I'm like, I lived in Rochester, New York, where it snows 5 feet and their roads are fine. And so that's not an excuse. I think that's probably the only thing. Every time I'm driving, I'm like, oh, my poor car, my poor car, my poor car. So I think the roads are the only thing that I would actually find not pleasant. Yeah, that's kind of it. But other than that, you know, everything else, the people, there's so much to do here. There are times where I'm just like, no, stay home. Pay rent here, stay home. But yeah, there's so much to do. I do trivia, bingo, karaoke. And then other than that, I have so many other little communities that I'm involved in. And then I just met so many other people that love Peoria like I do. And we just start having more fun.
So I arrived here on Sunday evening, and my friend had come with me. We come from Chicago. We're going to spend the week here. She already left, otherwise she'd be here. But I was like, we probably don't need to rent a car because I'm not going to be planning on going many places. We'll probably do just finding like Ubers to get where we need to go, like to this and going back to the airport and all that. So we land and we order an Uber, but then we had to cancel it because we had an issue with our baggage. And then finally, when everything got sorted, we looked to order Uber again, and they were like, there are no cars available. So I was like, oh, the one guy Uber like went home. So then I was like, well, let's try Lyft. And so we downloaded the Lyft app, and they're like, Lyft is not serviced here. Yeah, so I guess I've also heard like the city public transportation could be a little bit more frequent and available, and also if the buses were closed at the time, like they weren't running until 5 a.m. the next morning, so then we just gave in and rented a car. But yeah, that might be something.
I feel like for me, my biggest complaints about Peoria are things that are already being addressed. Like there's harm reduction services that are available, and there's mutual aid opportunities, and people who maybe don't have access to the things that they need to live a decent life. There's people that are paying attention to that and doing what they can to step up and help out. So, you know, though it's never perfect and there's a lot that can still be addressed, it's again, the community caring about other people. And so though I kind of started that saying that that's a bad thing, I mean, it's becoming, it's getting better. And I'm just, I don't know, I'm optimistic about the future here. I just don't see a lot of other places where people are giving that much attention and care to people who need it most. I think Peoria does a really good job of always listening and growing, being willing to adapt and change and shift in those ways.
So if you want to know all the things I love about Peoria, I also love my TikTok. I was thinking what we could improve on. There's a lot of things that are swirling in my head that sort of relate to one another. But I think one thing that we need to look at is one of our biggest assets is we're the #1 most affordable metropolitan or mid-sized city in the country. And that is why so many people come here, because we have things that a lot of other cities have, the arts, great shops, a lot of great employers. It's that affordability that is attracting people here to build up our population, to kind of bring that energy for the next generation. But if we don't want to have the pitfalls of other cities that have had rapid growth, increasing house prices, you know, you look at Texas, there are people who have been priced out when 3 years ago they could have afforded a home, and they just weren't in a position then, and literally 3 years, it's impossible now. So if you've heard the term NIMBYism, not in my backyard, Peoria is very guilty of this, in my opinion, just my opinion. When I first moved here, I worked in community development, actually worked for a nonprofit where their sole mission was to bring affordable housing to cities throughout the country. That was not well received here. It was one of the newest offices of a national nonprofit. They gained the least traction of all of their locations to bring affordable housing to the community. When people look at affordable housing, they think my nice neighborhood is gonna get tarnished by poor people living here. And so we have to look at that. If we're gonna say one of our huge advantages is we're so affordable, how are we going to remain affordable so that we can continue attracting people here who want to use their savings to invest back into the community and make it a better place? And that's a really hard conversation to have. And it's going to take a lot of us reflecting on, you know, where do we actually directly interact with poverty in our community? What's our comfort level thinking about those topics and using our privilege and power that we carry as an individual to address it. So something for you to think about. And if you haven't heard of NIMBYism or affordable housing, something to Google maybe today after the session if you like to research topics from local panels.
I'm gonna echo a little bit of something that's been shared already, but not necessarily a downside. I think it's definitely something the city is currently working to build upon. Retention. It's keeping the people that are coming in here or have been here their whole lives and keeping them for longer periods of time. Now, I know that there are a lot of businesses that have been sprouting over the past several years. I've had the opportunity to learn about a lot of them and their histories as well over the past several years. But there's an effort to try and provide more services and opportunities, especially for younger people, you know, people in their early mid-20s just coming straight out of college. To Angie's point, trying to prop up that affordability, make things as attractive as possible to those that are looking to get a fresh start on their lives. I think Peoria has all of that and more to offer. It's definitely a prime, so to speak, prime real estate for those that are just trying to get off on the right foot. And that's exactly the kind of experience that it's offered me. It's given me a time to reflect on really what I'm looking for specifically while trying to explore all these different avenues through the opportunities that it presents. There are a lot of great local businesses down here, a lot of restaurants, a lot of stores that have tons to offer. And I know there are a lot of great shop local efforts that try and prop those up as well. And I commend them so much, and they work with us a lot as well. We try to encourage as much, shall we say, publication of their efforts too. But it's just keeping people here. I think it's more than anything the most important thing, because most recent census, there was a 0.6 drop in the population compared to 2010 and 2020. And that's something that I think the city can change. And I think that's something the city is working to change. It's just a matter of making the change happen and making things, shall we say, attractive enough, because it's all there. It's just putting the word out. It's about publicizing it. And that's something that I think the city is on the right track with, but it's definitely got to get there first. And the roads are not too bad. Not to stick with the negative, but I will say one positive thing that comes to mind instantly is the hidden gems. Constantly finding hidden gems all over town. And again, I mentioned restaurants earlier. I'm a foodie. I love trying new places to eat. And people are recommending new restaurants to me all the time. And it's the little places that you wouldn't necessarily think of. It's, you know, you talk to anybody that's lived here for a long time, they'll recommend the best spots. Or, you know, you'll ask somebody, well, where do I take somebody who's visiting for the first time? They'll give you the exact place that you need to go. And it works every time. It hits the mark every time. And I love that. I love being able to make those little discoveries along the way. And I know several people who I've lived with, you know, during my time here, they feel the same way. It's that sense of discovery. It's that sense of finding the little spots along the way, the little hidden gems that really bring the spirit of the city alive. And I think that's the best part about it, no doubt.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about home. And the subtitle for the book is Finding Home Wherever You Are. So the question has to do with this. How are you, quote unquote, finding home in the Peoria area? Or how, John, will you find home in the Peoria area? So that's the next question.
Well, Paul, where did we go for dinner before this? What was it called?
Taco Loco.
Taco Loco.
Yeah, I love that place.
We had quesadilla. I had quesadilla tacos, and like from Texas, like we have Tex-Mex. Like there's a lot of Mexican food and cuisine there. And when I had that, I was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of home, and like that felt so good. I was like, I'm gonna go here more often.
One thing that is different for me living in Peoria than living anywhere else is I love the West Bluff, Best Bluff. It's an amazing walkable neighborhood. And I'm so glad that that's where I landed. My husband Paris here, he lived there already when I moved here. So I just was like, I'll go where you go. Thankfully, it's just such a great neighborhood. I mean, there's a lot of little shops. There's a lot of housing packed closely together. And something I had never enjoyed before this was being in such close proximity to my network of support, being walking distance from my friends, getting to know my neighbors, having these hubs like First Fridays where I could gather with all these folks, even if we didn't make formal plans. It's like a little reunion every month. You see everyone at First Fridays and you get reacquainted and you see how everyone's doing. And that kind of develops into, there are friendships where you have a friendship, you make a plan, okay, we get dinner, okay, we report out on everything that's been going on with us. Great, that is an awesome friendship. To me, the friendships I found here are a little bit even beyond that, where we're living our lives together. Okay, I have to run an errand. I need to go get groceries. I need to go get my prescription. We start to do those daily activities together rather than separating out social interactions from all of our day-to-day activities. And when you really start to integrate your regular life with all the people you love and your friends, it becomes easier to tackle all the things you have to do every day. You feel less isolated. It becomes more normal to talk about, you know, your struggles and be more vulnerable. And you know, I have friends who are just taking shifts for preparing to move. Friends who are offering to just come and sit with me while I pack, who are offering to help us move. Like really, weirdly, a lot of people offering to help us move. I think no one likes doing that, but people have just been really generous. And I think kind of interweaving those regular activities with just the joy of being around people I love, it just makes every day more wonderful.
Yeah, I think I keep talking about the people here, but for me, anywhere I've ever lived, what made it feel like home is just having the right group of people around you and finding your network of like people that you can be your true honest self with, and they bring that out in you and you do the same for them. Growing up and going to school, it was always easy to find a group of people because you're like, oh, I'm in art school, I'll hang out with the art people, and oh, I go to punk shows, I'll hang out with the punk kids, whatever. But like when you aren't in school and then you move back to a city where you grew up, but everyone else moves away and there's new things happening, I thought it would be much harder to find those people that made it feel like home, but it was actually easier than it had ever been because of things like First Friday. I met so many people so quickly, and then there were events for people who were in different arts groups in the city that could come together to kind of hear what everybody else is doing. And well, how can I show up to your event? What do you need for your event? Can I market that? Can I meet you to hear more about that? Whatever. So it became really easy to just make friends and find people who have similar interests. And it doesn't hurt that, you know, social media makes that even easier than ever now too, but it's just been way easy to meet so many wonderful people that make it feel like home in a different way.
If you want a great place to collide with your neighbors in the West Bluff Radish Kitchen, Yeah.
Yeah.
Open 10 to 6, Monday, Tuesday through Saturday.
I think personally for me, growing up all over the world and, moving and I've been all over different parts of the US, it's important to have a good balance of everything. And so the people here, I automatically love, but it's a good balance that I require personally of social life and happy with where I'm living. I mean, my rent is half than what it was in Seattle and I have twice as much space. Like that alone makes me happy. But, it is this balance between my personal life, my professional life, my social life, and my private life when it comes to just me alone and being personally happy with everything else. And honestly, the weather here is mild, so that doesn't bother me compared to what I've seen and been through Rochester and Reno. But that whole balance, I find very easily here. I found it very quickly and very easily, like I said, I'm happy that it's here. I don't have any plans of moving anytime soon, but, I'm trying to get all my friends to move here. They're trying to buy a house in Reno, and I was like, hey, it's so much cheaper here.
I guess I'm finding home here in simple things like teaching yoga and suicide, and also cooking my cuisine, like Indian cuisine at Susha. When someone come in and said like, oh, I had your meal and I really liked it, like feels so good because it's so nice to hear that because I made it my own food which taught by my grandmother and my mother. So it's really feels good. And also decorating my house. I never used to do it back, like say 2 years back. I always felt like, oh, I'm not going to stay here long enough, so I don't want to bother with decorating the house. But now once I mingle with the community and coming to know the people, I feel like, oh, I can see myself living here like maybe 10 years from now. So yeah.
I think, and this is probably something many people can relate to, I'm a huge supporter of small businesses. It's the little touches that go a long way, right? You go into a coffee shop, you go into a clothing store, you go into a restaurant or a bar, you start to see the same faces every once in a while. And it's the people that make those experiences work that highlight it all for me. It's the people that I've been getting to know, even just on a surface level, just saying, hey, Rick, good to see you again. How's your week been? Even if I just see him in passing. Or if a guy that I know I've seen work a door downtown, Friday, Saturday nights, hey, Karsten, I know you moved from the suburbs. Or hey, let's connect on that. How have you been? It's the little touches along the way. It's the little details that I think build up to the bigger picture of comfort, of understanding, of really getting that feeling of home. And I think it's something that anybody who frequents a certain place to eat or a store, and they see those faces more frequently, it makes the whole experience that much better. It enhances your time in the space. And for me, beyond just the people that I see in those spaces, but the people that I sometimes just run into going around town, it's the little things, it's the little experiences, and the little moments that make it all better, and it really helps support that experience as a whole. So.
Okay, so thank you. Now I want you to think to your backgrounds, your own unique backgrounds, and also use your imagination a little bit for this next question. What new event would you like to see happen in Peoria? What new event or new activity that you haven't seen around here that you'd love, imagine seeing here? What would it be?
I'm working on something already right now that we've been wanting to do for 10 years, but we just didn't know who to meet and how to make it happen. But it started, pandemic kind of put everything on hold, just like everyone else. But we've been trying to do a lot with the iron community, and we moved here in 2018, started Black Dog Metal Arts, and we did the first artistic iron core in Peoria's history with Big Picture Peoria, we wouldn't have been able to do that without the United League sharing their platform with us for the fest. And then we did the first Iron Core run by female identified artists in Peoria's history in 2019. And we brought female identified artists from all around the world for here. So we introduced the city to them, and then they also get to talk about where they're from to everybody here in Peoria. So it really works both ways. So we've been trying to figure out how to expand on that with also doing more collaborative efforts with people who are already here. So we're trying to currently work with other artists, and I don't want to say too much because we still haven't solidified things, but we're working on a unique Iron Core that's going to involve a few other artists also highlighting their skills that they've really honed in on that are kind of unique to the area, while also bringing in our friends from the Iron community from around the world to do their specific skills in Iron as well. So what we're trying to do is just show that, yes, this stuff is unique, but it's also stuff that anybody can do. And we're all willing to share our knowledge to make it accessible, approachable, and available to anybody in the community, regardless of your background in arts, whether you have one or not. So I will share more soon, though.
Oh, I guess I'll just go next. We'll just go down this way. For me, I think, well, my background, like I said, slot machine developer, I was a programmer for a long time. Now I teach game programming. So apart from my social skills, I've met some amazing people here in Peoria that actually work really well. And there's a series at, I met Aaron Gigas and Andrew Wynn was back there, and they have this amazing group where they are bringing technology out into the community and reaching out, and they have these series of talks and events about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's really cool. And Aaron started that. I spoke at the first event, and the topics then was about getting young people, young women more interested in technology. And you got to start earlier. And so that's one thing that I can see going forward, help Peoria become more of like a tech town, have more female programmers out there, and make sure that, it's still lovable, even though it's technology. So I love doing things like that. And I felt that, my voice is definitely being heard. I'm doing good. We're reaching the community. That being said, I've also been at work and talked to my boss and asked him, I said, do we ever go out and talk to schools in the area? And I would like to be part of that community, that person that goes to talk to young people. That way I can educate them. Yes, if I can be a programmer and use like a woman in a man's world kind of thing, you can do it too. And so that, he was all for it. So I'm going to get more involved in that now.
I could pick one, so I'm gonna say 3 and try to keep it short. I would love to see us do more family-friendly LGBTQ+ events like drag brunches. If anyone wants to organize one, I'll throw money at it. I'll promote it. You just hit me up. Let's do it. The second, I have seen some other cities in an effort to connect different neighborhoods. They'll do like a dinner where they connect like dozens and dozens of tables, like over the table. Have you heard of that? Yeah. Yes, I would love to see us do something like that that connects the South Side, the Warehouse District, downtown, and the North Valley, and like really make it where a lot of people could come together and not just metaphorically, but literally connect our neighborhoods. I think that's something that, I don't know, I would love to attend. And the third is I've always wanted to go to a dog show, like American Kennel Club in person. So I don't know, I just think that'd be really good.
I don't know, what is the country that has like the cheese wheel contest where you like push a wheel of cheese? Scotland? I think it is, I was thinking that too, but I didn't want to say.
I saw it on like Netflix or something.
Yeah, you like it, they just get together one day and they just like, they all bring their wheels of cheese and then they push it down a big hill and then everyone just like looks at it and enjoys. I'm sure there's like more around it, but I feel like
There are few like very nasty accidents.
yeah. Sometimes they don't make it down, sometimes they hit somebody, I don't know. It'd be really fun, I think, if we did something just completely unnecessary, but very enjoyable, very like childlike.
All right, now my idea feels lame. I guess just to keep it a little more broad, because I think it should all happen. You know, just there's a ton of creativity to be found here between the art guild, the orchestra ensemble, I mean, you name it. There's so much brilliance all over the place in this city, and I think that should be put on exhibit. So I think just trying to get more festivals to happen, especially during the warm seasons. I know there's already some. Usually, you know, they have the food carts downtown during the summer. I think to really prop up, you know, maybe something like a larger food festival would be awesome, a larger music festival, things to get people out and about and experiencing things in person with other people. And community starts with the connections that you make with others, right? And I think that festivals like those would really be a great jumping off point for a lot of people who are looking to discover new things and try and explore, you know, what is out there, what community members can offer to everybody else, and see other community members put their talents, you know, on display for everyone to see. So, but that's just my 2 cents. I'm all for the dog show.
It could be a cheese festival. with
Plus-
cheese.
So yeah, we'll just integrate those two perfectly.
Like Andy said, I would like to see a like food event, like food, like a big potluck event when everybody brings their own kind of meal which they cook every day. It's like their own dish. Maybe we can taste all of those. I truly believe that food brings people together. Because we can taste a different cuisines or different kind of things, but made differently, but same dish.
Chili contest.
Yeah.
I went to the last year.
Well, I'm new, I don't know the events here.
What?
Oh, yeah, my mom still shirts that, they're like every 4 weeks or something.
All right, I take back my answer.
Okay, this will be our last question of the evening, and then we'll open it up to the floor. And this last question has to do with neighbors and neighborliness. And I want to read a quote from the book on page 259. Almost 1/3 of Americans don't know any of their neighbors by name. This is very different than Angie's answer earlier about neighbors. So Angie's already answered this question. If you want to add more, that's fine. Almost 1/3 of Americans don't know any of their neighbors by name, and yet many studies show the value of neighborhood relationships, including the fact that when you are friends with your neighbors, you're 67% less likely to have a heart attack and 48% less likely to have a stroke. So this has to do with neighborliness. How friendly have your neighbors been or not? Again, comparing your past to moving to the Peoria area. So the last question is about neighborliness and knowing your neighbors.
I love my neighbors. I live in East Peoria, right over the bridge, and I live on a busy corner, but there's a lot of houses really close by. I also have a dog, and that's made it really easy to meet my neighbors, because other people walk their dogs, and our dogs are like, well, you're gonna meet now, and we're gonna be friends, and then I meet their dog, and a lot of neighbors, actually, I didn't know their name for a while. I just knew like so-and-so's dad or so-and-so's mom. But now I've gotten to know everybody really well. And everybody that's on my dog walking route, I know, and I know like the details of their life and what they're making for dinner and like the gossip that's happening at their work and whatever they want to share. But yeah, I love my neighbors and I know them, and I think it's really helped. I actually live in the house I grew up in. My mom still owned it, so when I moved away, I just started paying the mortgage on it, and it's been weird seeing the way the neighborhood has changed since I had lived there before. But there's a couple people that still live there that remember me from when I was a kid, which I find really fun and wholesome. You know, but everywhere else I've lived, I think it's just that my spouse and I are very social people, so we've always gotten to know our neighbors, and it just always makes it feel like a wonderful place to be, even if it's not the best neighborhood for other reasons.
I love that. And that's really cool. And you're still know people who know where you're at. In Seattle's kind of got this little term associated with that. That's me where I moved from. It's called the Seattle Freeze. people don't really make friends with other people. They're pleasant, but it's kind of like fake pleasantness, and then they don't really want to be your friend. Yeah, it was really hard for me to make friends over there. And then growing up in Hong Kong, there were always high-rise buildings. I mean, I went up and down the elevator with the same person every day, but we never talked. It was just that was just how it was. You never really communicated. But in Peoria, when I first moved here, I mean, after 2 months, I really didn't have anything to do because there's no unboxing of anything. I was lining my kitchen shelves, and when I was trying to set up everything else in my apartment, my neighbors just knocked on my door and were like, "Hey, you're new." And I was like, "This is new?" Like, I did not have that experience. And I was like, "Yeah, I was like, welcome to my empty apartment." So it was really friendly and really eye-opening, very heartwarming for one thing. And so I live by Bradley, and it's an old house that's been converted into apartments. So I have 7 neighbors. There are 8 apartments in there. And I know all my neighbors. They actually bothered to say hi, and when we're passing, it's not just a hey, it's a hey, how's it going? How about this? We know each other's lives, and I know all their dogs and cats' names. So that is great. I'm like, it was definitely eye-opening, and I'm very happy. I know my neighbors, and I'm better off with nobody. Yeah.
I'm gonna double dip. If you're like me and you're terrified to just go up to people's doors and knock on them, because then they'll open the door and you'll be like, I don't know what to say, I'm nervous. We have very active neighborhood associations. Like, I feel like almost every neighborhood has one, and with several members. So I would just add on to the friendliness that if you're not that person like me, you're like, I don't know what to say when I don't know you. The neighborhood associations are great. And shout out to Renaissance Park Community Association, which my husband almost has single-handedly run for 6 years.
Believe it or not, I have a kind of neighbor story.
Already?
Well, I mean, I kind of want to shout out Andrew back there. Hey, Andrew. So when I first visited Peoria in November, my realtor might connect me with him because he knew that I'd be working from home. And Andrew runs the Nest, which is a co-working space in the warehouse district. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll let you talk to him, and maybe he'll let you work there." And he did. He gave me a pass for the week. And that was super nice. Again, just testament just how welcoming everyone is. But I ran into him on Monday at a coffee shop. I was like, "Hey," and he was like, "Hey, I don't think he's expecting to see me here." I didn't tell him coming back, but that already gave me this sense of I'm gonna know people here. I'm gonna get to know people here, and they're gonna know me, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'm excited.
So I'm gonna keep it real with you for a second. I worked 3rd shift for a good number of years here. And so that meant I was asleep when most people were out and about doing their thing. So I didn't really get to interact with my neighbors too much until a few months ago. So I guess my answer to this question will be a little bit more looking to the future than the past, since a lot of my friends here have had a lot of interactions with neighbors, and those interactions have been fantastic. Also, the fact that they can be connected with a lot of people they didn't know were moving here. I've had several friends who went to U of I, ISU, Bradley. They didn't even know that a lot of their own classmates were staying in the area. And then they ended up reconnecting with them just because they were living in the same apartment complex or on the same street. Those are the kind of interactions that you really can't get anywhere else. The mid-sized city feel, a city like Peoria, you get that experience where you can walk down the street, exactly, see someone else's dog, or find a common characteristic or interaction that you can just touch base on and say, hey, you know what? It's crazy. We both, can relate to this, or hey, we both went to school here. And those are the kind of interactions I want to have more, especially now that I can sleep like a normal person. And something that I think a lot of people here do try to do very actively. It's again revisiting that idea of openness, that idea of being willing to just keep your door unlocked, and hey, come on over. I have so many people in my life right now who have that mentality. You know what? If you're done after work, come on over. Let's hang out. Let's catch up. Get whatever's off your chest. Talk to me. And that's something that I feel lucky to have. I know a lot of people that live here feel lucky to have. Can't find that a lot of other places. You really can't. So looking forward to the next year and what the kind of interactions that I can have with them. So,
I have to say I never interacted with my neighbors before, but after reading the book, I really thought I should interact with the neighbors and bake few cookies and knock on the door. But unfortunately, they were not home and they didn't open the door. But I'm very determined to go this weekend again and knock on the door. So I make few interactions with them. I'm looking forward to that.
We have a few minutes for any questions from the audience. If you just raise your hand. Yes.
The question. You all are fairly young and new to the area. What would you recommend a boomer do to the area do?
All the activities I do, I go to bingo. It's at Oliver's in the Heights on a Wednesday. It is really fun. I go to several different trivia things in the area, and I have a lot of fun doing things like that. And I'm not that young. I look it. It's the genes. It's great.
I'm at the other end. We're at the other end. We're at the other end.
But yeah, there's so
I could be
many.
your mom. I'm curious.
But yeah, there's, and then I've been to like the First Fridays. I like that because that's just walking around. That's with art and things like that. I think there's a lot to do here. I mean, and lot to support. So I would recommend all those activities that I already do.
The neighborliness has, being from New England and being reserved, the neighborliness is taking some getting used to. We're getting, my husband isn't here originally, I'm from New England, but we're back because of family with his family. Anyway, seriously, what would you recommend?
I was gonna say First Friday too, just everybody goes to First Friday and there's people of like, literally everyone goes to First Friday, but there's also like, it's not just art, there's also music, and then there's also just people doing things. I don't know how to be like, it's so all encompassing, and there's
You know
like
what First Friday is? Everybody know what First Friday is?
and it is this Friday, so it's
Yes,
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow, so I had to really checking out. There's I don't know if Arts Partner still does the First Friday map, but they used to do like a map on the website where it was everyone who had a First Friday event, it would be on there, so you can kind of go. But it just in years of going now, I have my own little route where I'll start here because they always have cupcakes and wine, and then I'll go here, walk through, and then I'll go get some chips and walk and see everything. So First Friday is definitely worth looking into.
If you type in First Fridays on Facebook, you'll see all the upcoming events, and that way you'll see anyone that's hosting. It's just like a term that all of the galleries use when they have a free event, First Friday of the month.
I would suggest, even though it's hard, to like open up a little bit and like get to know them, because they might be able to connect you to like the happenings and like the little groups. Like staying with Paul for the last couple of days, he's like gone all day even when he's retired. He's like, I go to bowling on Wednesdays. I have lunch with this guy every Tuesday, and like I'm in choir, I gotta go to practice, and like he's in all these little things, and like he's busier than me, and I'm working. So maybe talk to him. He might have some suggestions.
Yes.
I moved to Peoria 10 years ago, in my early 70s. I think it's a great place to live as a retiree. Now, since the pandemic, the Nature Center doesn't have their concerts. They used to have concerts in this intimate area for $7, a small group of people who were friendly. The Park District is very active. The library is very active. 3 community theaters and 2 symphonies, and then the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute through Bradley is wonderful for retirees. All kinds of things going on for older people there.
Thank you for sharing that, Roberta.
I want to just add to what Rich said. If you would come to this location a week from Sunday, the Biography and Nonfiction Book Club, 3 o'clock, we'll be discussing this book. And there are people like Rich and the retired or soon to be. So we can let you know more on these.
Actually, your book club was the first step coming out. And yeah, I'm Becky.
Well, yeah, we're talking about this book, the week of Sunday.
Rich?
I would also say the Journal Star on Sundays will always have a list of events that are going on. And you know, I find things at ICC and Bradley and, you know, they're both price free things sometimes that are cultural and entertaining.
Last,
I just want to add to that, if you like the arts, get on Arts Artist newsletter. The list of arts events is like 200. That's cool.
And you can always come and practice yoga with us at Stoke.
yes,
I put in a plug for Earth Day, the 23rd, that's a Saturday in April, so about 2 weeks from now. It's down at the Nature Center on the hill in Peoria Heights, from 11 till 4. Yeah.
well, I want to thank the audience for coming out tonight on a rainy, sleety night. And I definitely want to thank our panelists, if we could give them a warm. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Yeah.